are back with Peter Nelson from Nelson Nursery and Water Gardens and Skip Richter, host of GardenLine. They're here with us all hour answering your lawn and gardening questions. So you can give us a call at 713-533-5230. Again, 713-533-5230. All right. As we mentioned earlier, one of the things that you specialize in is the water gardens.
Yes.
And if people aren't thinking about it, once you walk out there, we walked out to your place and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so peaceful out here.
Correct.
It adds to, like you were saying, you love seeing the animals and the plants, and the whole, but when you have that water trickling, it adds something to it.
That's right. It really does, and I think it helps. It brings wildlife in too. A lot of people love birds and all that stuff, so you're giving an opportunity for those birds and stuff to come in and get their water and everything.
But here's the issue: people go, "I have no room for some big pond or whatever." No, we're talking about the feature. You can do if somebody wants a big old pond in their backyard, you can do that.
Absolutely.
But we're talking about the features, and in Houston we have so many more high rises going on right now. This is something that can fit onto a patio right over here.
Yeah, correct. So that little fountain that's there in the front, that's all self-contained. And that's something that's costing, $300. That includes the pump. There's just
you don't need running water coming to it.
Correct.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
There's a pump in there that you plug into your outlet, and it just recirculates the water.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there's evaporation, so you got to keep an eye on it and make sure it has water in there. But that's an easy way to bring water into a patio, an apartment, your back porch without a lot of work. I mean, that thing's 2 foot tall, 1 foot across. So,
yeah.
I mean, very easy way. And look how much noise just that little fountain's making.
Yeah, yeah.
Just echoing up.
And people might not be able to hear it at home, but I'm gonna come over here and put my microphone next to it. So here we go.
Yeah.
Hear it now. There you go. Relaxing. All right.
So relaxing.
Also, different types of fountains. You have like the disappearing fountain.
Correct. So when you come to Nelson's, one of our big things is what we call disappearing fountains. And we coined it that in the late 90s because the water disappears because we sink the base. I brought a setup today so people could see it. But it's a reservoir, and it's that square reservoir down there at the bottom. We sink that into the ground. That is completely watertight. There's a pump that sits down in there, and that's what's sitting there on the front. And then we run a piece of flexible tubing from the pump to the jar or to the stone or something. And then again, it's recirculating. Water pumps up, fills the jar up, and then spills back into the basin. And then you cover the whole basin with stone, so the water disappears. So it's a very easy way to have a water feature. It doesn't take a lot of maintenance. And you can do it again. It's a little bit bigger than that. This is typically more for someone who has a standard backyard, but easy way to have a water feature with great noise.
So there's what we hear, but also what we see. You specialize in just the most beautiful, receptacles for the water, right?
Yes. So we bring in pottery from all over the world. Vietnam's one of the really big places. This is a piece that came out of Vietnam. We bring them in by the container. So a tremendous amount of pots come in typically every springtime. All different colors, shapes, sizes, textures, pebble pots, pots made out of tile. And then we carry all the different stone sculptures. There's really, I always tell people that they'll walk into the door and they say, well, we want a fountain. I say, well, walk around for 20 minutes first.
Yeah.
Just see all the different options.
Yeah. Okay, people will ask about mosquitoes. And so when it's running water, mosquitoes don't like that, right?
Correct.
But there's also like fish you can put in there that will eat those mosquitoes and their larvae. And then the other thing that people look at is putting plants, adding plants to their actual little water garden.
Correct. When Skip and I were talking this morning, this is what I would consider the smallest container water garden you could do. So that's just a glazed piece of pottery. It's a bowl that's watertight. There's a little water lily in there. It's a mini yellow. I was hoping it was going to open in time, but it's still a little too early. But Skip was like, how do you keep, the mosquitoes?
Yeah.
The key is, we sell a little fish called a rainbow dace. It's a native little minnow. The little ones you find in the ditches are called gambusia.
We have them.
Oh, yeah.
You talked about watching the nature and how that works together.
Right.
They just pop up and grab it. They pop up and grab those mosquitoes. It's like got a little surprise for you there. All right. We have Alyssa on the phone this morning. Good morning, Alyssa. Alyssa, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. What is your question?
My question is, I bought this summer, and it is still in its pot.
You said you bought is it a lemon tree you said you bought this summer?
I did. And it's still in its original pot, and it looks like it's dying. And I want to plant it in my backyard, but I don't know what type of soil to use.
Yeah. So the key here is why is it dying? Is it because it's still stuck in its original pot, or
It could be that it dried out. It could be that you're seeing some other symptoms like perhaps citrus leaf miner is shriveling up the leaves, and you're thinking it's dying. Whatever the cause. Yes. Whatever the cause is, make sure it gets plenty of water, but that the pot drains well so it doesn't become an underground, like a bathtub holding water. And probably be a good idea to get it out and plant it if you're going to put it in the yard. Citrus likes warm weather, and here we are. We still have some months of warm weather where it could get well established before winter.
Yeah, all right, got a text on another citrus question. This is the leaves on
Yes.
this one right here.
Yes.
And the leaves, just so people know at home, they're kind of crinkly and really oily looking.
They shrivel, they get a silvery look, they have little zigzag trails through them, and that is a little fly that lays its egg in the leaf. And the larva tunnels between the top and bottom surfaces. That's why it's called a leaf miner, like a coal miner.
Yeah.
It's in there doing that. And they're real easy to manage if you just get on it early.
Okay.
They attack new fleshes of growth, so old citrus leaves are not going to get it. When you get a new flesh of growth, you just squirt those with something called spinosad. It's an organic, and it soaks in and it takes care of them.
Okay.
Timing is everything.
All right. Jimmy is on the line. Good morning, Jimmy.
Hey, yeah.
And what's your question?
My question is, I got a watermelon plant out there in my flower bed outside. It's real pretty, and it's blooming. Got blooms on it. But it do the little watermelon, then it falls off.
So you have you said you have a little watermelon that falls off, or the blooms are falling off? The watermelon's falling off?
Yes,
Before it
and
grows up?
it's a lot of bloom on it,
The fruit's falling off.
but
The
it's
fruit's
not.
falling off. Okay. All right.
It's not bad.
Amen. So watermelons have a lot of seeds, and the seeds make the watermelon stay on the plant and not get aborted. And so I heard a researcher told me one time it takes like 2 dozen or 3 dozen visits by a bee to fully pollinate that flower. So you may have a lack of bees, maybe a pesticide killed them. Honeybees don't like to fly in wet weather, which we haven't had any of that lately. But it's something like that related to pollination.
All right. Linda has a question here. She says, my Esperanza has grown from a small sapling into a nice sized green plant, but it simply won't flower. How can I nurture it to go from this to this? All right, it won't flower, but obviously, the heat is one of the things that helps things to flower, right? But we're getting plenty of heat. So what do you think the problem is here?
Well, a couple of things. They need sunlight, and they need to not be stressed. That plant doesn't look stressed.
You said sunlight. Does it look like it may be up against a wall where it's not getting the sunniest area?
Perhaps it's a lack of sun. They bloom best in more sun. There's also Esperanzas being sold that are a type that has to get really big before it flowers, and it's not as floriferous when it does. There's one called Gold Star, and that's the one you need to look for. And I mean, when it's 2 feet high, it's already blooming and looks good. That would typically be what it would look like. In fact, one like this, it should be
That's 2
blooming
foot
that
tall.
high. So be careful when you buy one. Get that good one, and it'll do its best.
Yeah, and a lot to be said for where you're planting something. How much sun is it going to get? Because sometimes we put it in the place that we have available or where you think it's going to look pretty, but it has to respond to how much sunlight it's getting. If it's in the shade, that can be a problem. If it's in a divot in the soil where it's getting too wet when you water, that can be a problem.
Yes.
All kinds of things. All right, that's why you have our gardeners here.